Hey everybody, welcome to Why You Should Care. I'm Jamal Simmons. First of all, thank you to Julia Manchester, who did a phenomenal job filling in while I was away on paternity leave. She was a real lifesaver. Secondly, impeachment has really become a thing. News is coming out of our ears. This week, there are national security officials up on Capitol Hill on Tuesday, on Wednesday, and again on Thursday. The big moment everyone's waiting for? On Wednesday, EU Ambassador Gordon Sondland is set to testify. He's at the center of the Arms for Oppo research accusations coming from Democrats and career national security and diplomatic officials. We'll see if the president's lawyers get between him and Twitter this week, but I don't know anybody who's betting on that. In other news, Democratic moderates are trying to move on the progressives. We'll see if they have a shot. Republicans are trying to push back on impeachment in the states, but voters aren't buying it just yet. And finally, convicted murderer Rodney Reed won't be executed this week in Texas. And Kim and Kanye, they're fully engaged. This is Why You Should Care. Ahead of a potential presidential bid, former Mayor Michael Bloomberg apologized for his stop and frisk policy yesterday during a speech at a predominantly African-American megachurch in Brooklyn. The policing tactic mainly targeted blacks and Latinos and fostered distrust between police and the communities they served.
But I can't change history. However, today, I want you to know that I realized back then I was wrong, and I'm sorry.
Many see Bloomberg's apology as too little too late and a clear attempt at covering his rear flank before he officially announces a late entry into the 2020 Democratic horse race. Bloomberg isn't the only late entry for Democrats. Former Massachusetts Governor Deval launched his presidential bid just last week. The late entries are seen as an effort from the moderate camp on the left to push back on the strong campaigns run by progressives in the party, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. And this effort puts fears that a left-wing candidate won't have what it takes to beat Donald Trump in 2020 front and center. Here's the funny part. For many Bernie progressives, Elizabeth Warren isn't seen as being one of them. They think she's too accommodating to the center, not legit enough. But why should you care? There might be a few reasons for the late push. Former Vice President Joe Biden has been slipping in the polls while netting lackluster fundraising results. And a new Siena College New York Times battleground poll conducted a 2020 hypothetical matchup between Democrats and Trump. Well, it showed Biden, Warren, and Sanders in a statistical tie with President Trump. And in addition, some big donors like Mayor Pete, but they aren't sure he can cut it either. Listen, the Democrats do this all the time. They wring their hands and search for a new savior, but here's the reality. There have been dozens of candidates for president. Most voters are satisfied with their choices, and maybe, just maybe, the center left of the party doesn't have the mojo it used to. We'll see. The Trump campaign was dealt a blow over the weekend. Democratic Governor John Bel Edwards was reelected in Louisiana, making him still the only Democratic governor in the Deep South. The loss came after the president's attempt to get some voters in the state to come out in support of businessman Eddie Rispone. Trump visited Louisiana twice in 2 weeks, but voters did not heed the president's call, and the popular Democratic incumbent won by 40,000 votes. This is the latest defeat following the Trump campaign's efforts to get Republicans elected governor in the South. Earlier this month, Kentucky Governor Matt Bevin lost his bid for re-election. The only Trump-backed gubernatorial candidate to win was Mississippi's Tate Reeves. Why you should care. President Trump is embroiled in an impeachment inquiry, and his party is trying to fight back. Winning in the South would have given the president an opportunity to play offense instead of defense, at least for a little while. As Politico reported today, the Republicans are putting a lot of money into turning the impeachment inquiry around to the local level. House Republicans are kicking off ad buys worth $7 million in 37 districts, calling out Democrats on impeachment, especially in those districts where President Trump won in 2016. Look, it could work. A new CNN Des Moines Register Mediacom poll shows Iowans on both sides of the aisle think impeachment could ultimately shift toward the president's favor. Texas death row inmate Rodney Reed was given a reprieve on Friday when the Texas Board of Pardons and Parole unanimously voted to recommend delaying his execution. The Texas Court of Appeals then granted him an indefinite stay. This was just 5 days before Reed was headed toward the execution chamber. Reed was convicted of the 1996 murder of Stacey Stites, a woman he later admitted to having an affair with, which would explain his DNA being found on her body. There is some evidence another person may be guilty of the crime. This case made national and international news once athletes, Republican and Democratic politicians, and entertainers got involved. The most famous of these personalities was Kim Kardashian West, who has made criminal justice issues a priority in recent years. The founder of the Kardashian reality show Empire was reportedly with Reed on Friday when he first heard of the decision. In related news, TheRoot.com reports that her husband, Kanye West, was an hour away at the jail in Houston leading prayers and performing songs from his latest hip-hop gospel release, Jesus is King. That's a real thing that happened. Why you should care. According to the nonprofit Death Penalty Information Center, there are 29 states where the death penalty is legal. 4 of those states have moratoriums imposed by their governors. Since 1976, there have been 1,499 people executed in the United States. As with the Stites murder, 75% of the victims in those crimes were white, even though white people only made up 50% of murder victims nationally. Of the persons executed for interracial murders, 290 were black people convicted of killing a white person. Only 21 were white people convicted of killing a black person. When it comes to who gets the death penalty, it appears race still matters. And activists argue that's one reason to pause executions in America. Thanks for watching Hill TV on YouTube. Be sure to click subscribe and hit the bell so you know when we post new videos. And head to thehill.com for all the latest political news.